So I'm going to start off with a small poem, a short one, a quatrain. This is called A Cauldron of Vegetables, in memory of J. Prefontaine, Graham Lewis, and Martin Scott, all dead at 46. I swear my soup tonight could tempt the dead, and I surely wish that you'd be tempted. Instead, you're buried deep within my head, and care not whether this pot be emptied. I miss my boys. Back in the day, I had a rock and roll band here in town. It was called Uncle Filthy and the Cub Scouts. There was 3 college guys and me. I was Uncle Filthy, of course. They were the Cub Scouts. When I was writing my poems, I decided that I would make my stage persona of Uncle Filthy a character in one of my poems. And I gave Uncle Filthy neighbors, a husband and wife. And the husband liked Uncle Filthy, and the wife hated his guts. So here's a little piece in blank verse that I wrote from the husband's point of view. It's called Filthy's Blues. Up there on stage, our Uncle Filthy shakes his head and stomps his feet and rolls his tongue impossibly, as if his every note makes up a secret code that only he can understand. I play guitar and bass, percussion in a pinch, but I can't run a single scale on my harmonica the way our Uncle Filthy can. And hell, it must be lonely when he's practicing inside that hovel of a house he rents all by himself, except for those 2 hounds who howl all night and keep my wife awake. Annie has precious little tolerance for Uncle Filthy's lack of etiquette. She says it's truly vile the way he leaps across the stage and giggles at the girls and draws them up beneath the colored lights and lets them sing duets with him, off key and out of time, before he slaps them 5s and sends them squealing back into the swell. Annie calls him a rake, which isn't far from true. But she can't see that this is what a bar crowd wants. The simple chance for some small fame. The chance to jam. To really jam. To kick it with the band and be a star for once. To shine at last. Right there. Right then. When I see Filthy lounging on his porch, I lift my National out of its case, grab the whiskey, and sneak across the lawn. We knock off blues, old moans and buck dances mostly, though Filthy calls for spirituals when it gets good and dark and all the lights around the neighborhood start blinking out. It's then his boorish voice rings clear and true, though he himself does not believe a word of what he sings. The power's in the tunes themselves, he likes to say, not what they mean to Jesus freaks. Our Filthy's full of shit, if nothing else, though I don't mind his blunt philosophy the way my Annie does. She doesn't want me picking over there on Uncle Filthy's porch, especially so late. And when she's had enough of it, her harsh pronouncement rattles up the block. Last call, old man, she snaps and shuts the door. I clench my jaw, then toast to Filthy's health. Our tumblers clink. We toss the whiskey back and pound out one more song. A 12-bar blues in E major. Some gritty 3-chord thing about a man who could never go home. Way back in the day, I used to run a tire store for my mom and dad, and we had this big hulking guy named Kenny who was a tire buster for us, and he wasn't very smart, but man, that guy was strong. And when I left Eastern and went down to Arkansas, the first poem I wrote and published as a graduate student was a poem about Kenny, my strongest man. Kenny cannot read the warning on the floor jack does not know what truck might one day crush his legs or upper body. But Kenny is my strongest man, able easily to spin off even the tightest rust-laden lug from the dirtiest rim in town, as if he himself is king of every tire buster here. Kenny says it is some chore to be stupid, but that even a man with smarts like his has lapses. Like last week when he didn't tighten the lugs on the rear wheels of my best customer's new caddy. And Kenny says he'll never forget how he remembered his mistake as the car eased into traffic. The things that man said when he walked back. Still shaken, Kenny stares hard into the spin balancer, as if any small weight he is pounding onto that rim will balance out his life, make him roll true. I hadn't written a poem in a long time, and then I wrote one. Well, that's what we do, right? You know. I didn't want to write any more stupid poems, but then I did. This one is kind of a love poem, you know, and secret in my secret mind. You would never know this unless I tell you, but I'm the guy, and my wife Heidi is the girl. I mean, not that anyone would ever know. Self-portrait as the last liquor store before the Arkansas line. Here I am, a gaggle of weeds circling the cinder block shop that is my true self. A slapdash building rolled in flesh-toned pink, its aisles stuffed with weekly specials so cheap, even locals on this side of the line come here to prime their cabinets with booze. Under the static drone of neon signs leans the toothless cashier. His one true love, a slim half pint of fighting cock bourbon, lifted so daintily to his parched lips, a well-dressed woman tilts her offhand glance toward the cooler against the back wall and sachets past the broken ice machine, as if his shamelessness were nothing more than a simple mistake. A boob who'd left the bathroom door ajar and had no time to click it shut. She peruses the wines, pulls down a bottle of white Zinfandel, reads the label, and slides it in her purse before the dim cashier has had the chance to recuperate from the burning kiss that only whiskey gives. He smiles at her, and when she winks, he whispers to himself, pressing the tiny flagon to his heart. I'm glad I wrote that stupid little poem. Here's another one of the dead boys. One sentence. They tell you, first of all, when you go to write poems, they say, don't write questions. If you write a question that's stupid, somebody can answer it. It's good advice, unless you're a pretty good writer, I think. And they tell you, why would you write a one-sentence poem? What the hell is that? I'd like to break the rules. What good at all? What good at all am I when Heidi's legs have given out, and our boy Prefontaine has died of cancer on the coast of Maine, and every whiff of air I've forced myself to steal has scorched my lungs and made me beg for mercy on this April afternoon, where all around me wends the wicked stench of spring escaping from its bleak cocoon. That's sad. Sometimes I think of my buddy Graham Lewis, and I'm glad to be on the panelist Friday for the Graham Slam. And I think if I was submitting poems myself, which I can't, even though I could use $3,000, I would submit this next poem. And I brought a few sonnets, by the way. I think I brought 4 sonnets. And this is a sonnet. I think if you guys want to be part of the Poets Club, you should learn to write a sonnet. It's just a thing we should learn to do. Coach Turner's Eulogy. This cemetery faces the high school parking lot where Johnny Ralph McPherson, the best quarterback Ashmore has ever seen, kissed his girl Kelly Culp, and like a fool, squealed up the street as fast could be. He dodged the Jackson twins at First and Main, then shot across the tracks and beat the train with 15 yards to spare, at least. KC squeezed Johnny Ralph's athletic thigh and cheered him on as if it were a Friday night and he was scoring under hometown lights. It was then the tire blew and JR veered into his daddy's hulking Blazers path, which puts us down by 3. How sad the math. Woo! I'm with you, sad day. You guys be careful in those cars. They could kill you. So, here's another sonnet, and I thought that I should bring something in for the Eastern students. There's a lot of you here. And I know what you guys like to do. Party. Especially on syllabus week, and after finals are done. And now, I mean, who knows? Good times. A nurse pointed to everything inside Joe's bulging rear. A dead gerbil, a stack of Popeye comic books, an entire rack of antique Irish snooker balls. Joe tried to deny the X-ray's painful story. He shook his throbbing head in disbelief and howled, "Oh God!" He never felt such grief or encountered anything so gory. If only Joe could wrap his mind around last night's events. He'd had a slew of drinks at some party and chatted up some mix who slapped his face and swore her friends would pound the daylights out of him for words like that. He told her to stuff it and called her fat. No way to say one. Never, ever call a woman fat. Just saying. Poor Joe. My former office mate and good friend and colleague, Denise Preston, asked me to read a poem. So this one goes out to her. Another sonnet, Stargazing. I like to watch you sleep half covered by a flimsy sheet, with one leg jutting out and the freckles on your shoulder blades exposed like constellations on a starless night. Who will chart this tiny universe, map it out and give these simple constellations elemental names for water, fire, earth, and air, names that spin like stars across the sky? It can't be easy, love, to tote these worlds on your back, to stand the crushing weight of countless galaxies, or bear the heat a billion burning stars can generate. But when I skim my fingertips across your solid shoulders, I palm the warmth of every unnamed number. I'm glad you clap when I read something that's nice. Woo, we read a nice one. Heidi and I are in the antiques business, you know. Instead of writing poetry, what I spend my time doing is sniffing around old junk. And I started in the business buying cheap junk off the dollar wagons at farm sales. So here's a little poem about an auction, country auction called Farm Sale. The auctioneer is crying for a bid on Ruby Siegel's threadbare underthings. A box lot Ruby's hapless daughter hid amongst this wagon load of offerings that Ruby would have had the sense to burn had not her heart exploded in her chest. The ringman adds a broken butter churn and 3 corroded trivets to the mess before the neighbor lady waves her cards and rates the winnings in for $50. Her husband slips across the crowded yard to ogle Ruby's ailing pickup truck because it's plenty fine for hauling feed or any other goods his hogs might need. brought 3 poems that are spoken by unreliable narrators. You know, it's one of my favorite tricks. I stole it from Robert Browning, you know, steal everything you can. And for those of you guys who don't really know about what an unreliable narrator is, an unreliable narrator is a guy who's lying, who's done some unspeakable thing, and he's trying to justify it. And when you hear something read by an unreliable narrator, it is a lesson in what not to do and how not to be. Such as Browning's My Last Duchess, for instance. I tell my students, right? This one is written in 13 envelope quatrains, ABBA quatrains, and it takes place down in Arkansas. Adam, we got another Arkansas stuff going down there. Adam Prince is back there. He's one of the program boys, and boy, what a hell of a fiction writer he is. I'm sure glad he is in town. Maybe you've been to some of these places, Adam. I don't know. We don't know each other that well yet. Letter from the Washington County Jail. It's a good place. What the hell? God only knows what fun we could have had if certain folks, you know the ones I mean, weren't doing what they weren't supposed to be. I'm telling you now, Laura, I was mad. It was awful the way they carried on like that with their shorts around their ankles, their you-know-what sagging down in wrinkles. It wasn't fair to us, or everyone else who had to see it for that matter, to have to witness such a sick display in Wilson Park on such a sunny day when things between us were never better and could have clicked this time for sure. Perhaps I could have held your hand and kissed it too. Or sung that pretty song I wrote for you. The one you've yet to hear about your lips and eyes and nose and what I think of them. The one that sweeps into the way your hair blows gently in the August breeze and where that breeze might lead us to. It even rhymes. Too bad I never got the chance to sing. Seems I never do. I'm sorry that you're still too mad at me to speak for what I did to those frat boys for ruining our afternoon. I didn't mean to hurt them like I did. You know I wouldn't lie. But heck, I'll just sit back and serve my time and hope that you can find it in your heart to hang with me when I get out of here in 66 more days. I'll bring you down to Dixon Street, Laura. We'll do the town. We'll eat fried clams and drink imported beer. And when we're done, I'll strum you that new song and all the rest I've written in this cell. The ones about the loneliness, the hell it is to contemplate your every wrong and take them up like pictures on the wall for every ugly screw and con to see. I want everyone to know the real me, Laura, including you. If I could call back every deed, or misdeed to be sure, and stroll untainted through good Fayetteville with all its quiet streets and peaceful hills, I'd live a different life. One calm and pure and free from fisticuffs of any kind. I'd croon for all our upright citizens, rich and poor, and chant until our children are overcome with confidence and find that they can change the world. My turtle dove, my shining star, my tender paramour. I'm simply one you can't choose to ignore because this tough love man believes in love. He was having a tough time there beating up on the frat boys and ended up in jail, wasn't he? As a writer, sometimes we're sending work out, we keep sending out work to these journals, and those suckers won't take our work, and we send it over and over, and we wonder why the hell they won't take it. Those jerks. So I wrote this poem. It's also an unreliable narrator. It's just a straight old blank verse. Complaint. I'm convinced by now, dear Allison, it must be you and not myself, forsooth, who's simply been mistaken all these years. It can't be I. The other editors, and oh, there is a mighty throng of them, proclaim me worthy of their magazines. They send me quips and joke about my lines. Sublime, they say. The way you twist your words so neatly into seamless metaphor, we hardly even noticed they were there. Your work, they say, is near invisible, a disappearing act unto itself. I do not take them lightly, Allison. They are professionals, and finding me and others with like taste and skill, though it is difficult indeed, is what they crave. I cannot comprehend your stubbornness with me in light of all my accolades, my status in our fair community, my utter and most shameless willingness to give these helpless syllables a life upon the modest scroll of history. It is not fair that you would dare decline your readership, my ingenuity, my aptitude, my formal decadence. Perhaps you are the type of editor, sweet Allison, who likes to serve like needles, prefers her company have room enough to waltz the night away when supper's done. My friend, the world I know is full of woe, a rusty carriage squeaking round the sun. Inside, the whole of us dance noisily as if the rotten clamor that we make could muffle out the music we might hear. And here's a sestina. That's a fancy little 39-line form. This one is spoken by a serial killer who thinks he's a werewolf. And he's speaking to his next victim. He's already killed 3, and this one's going to be next. The Werewolf's Daughters. I could not tell my daughters of the voice that fills my spirit like the Holy Ghost, that shakes my limbs on nights the moon is ripe with wonderment and pulls me to the fields, naked and hairy, at the edge of town where lovers park and farm dogs come to die. I could not tell them how the body dies and is reborn with claws and fangs, a voice so guttural it rumbles through the towns, unloosing floorboards so they creak like ghosts, and thunders high above the awestruck fields to feed our deepest fears and leave them ripe enough to eat. My daughters were as ripe as apples on God's tree before they died, before I spread their bones across the fields in neat rows that they might wake with voices more wicked than the howling wind. 3 ghosts, 3 spirits rent from flesh, who own this town. The strength we share would level any town, not just poor Hungerville, where red and ripe, delicious women moan like wounded ghosts and beg their helpless God to let them die. We love this happiness. Each pretty voice becomes another daughter in a field. Another flawless bloom who fills her field with song. My daughters waltz about the town so carelessly they will not guess whose voice has bid them dance, whose tune will deem them ripe, whose undulating claws will gleam like death personified and carve them into ghosts some lonesome night. My daughters yearn for ghosts, for mythic creatures rampant in the fields to burst forth from the dreams that flash and die inside of them, the dreams this pious town should consecrate. But nothing's pure and right, daughter, save we who furnish dreams the voice that will not flash and die, a holy voice that shakes this town and sanctifies the ghosts who blaze like ripened berries in the fields. I'm glad that's not me. Back when I was an undergraduate here at Eastern, I was taking a poetry workshop from Bruce Guernsey The great Professor Bruce Guernsey, Professor Emeritus Bruce Guernsey, who's out there in the audience tonight. Thanks for coming, Bruce. Bruce taught me a ton about poetry. And this last poem that I'm going to read, I wrote in Bruce's workshop when I was an undergrad here at Eastern Illinois University. Home movies. Here I am running in a field I don't remember, the hillside flowering yellow. It is good with me now falling and laughing mutely into the camera. There's Jim waving from the barn where the go-karts live. He's still too small to drive fast across the barnyard like me, but puts slow and crooked as Grandma's creek. One day we will ride hard into those woods and come home hurt, heads busted, noses streaming blood. For now we are safe, life simple as cows by that farm pond. Stand next to the oil tank with your muscles flexed, skinny father. Be with him, mother. Slide your hand across his hairy chest. Pinch his cheek. Smile, folks. Smile. We're watching. Thank you.